Welcome to my podcast. I'm Lauren Chain. Today, I want to talk a little bit about recovery and the 12 steps, and specifically an area in step 10 that continues to unfold for me. It's so interesting how the 12 steps have expanded and contracted over the years. Lucky for me, I got sober when I was 24 years old. I was in need of getting sober at that time. I'm the product of an intervention. I did go to a treatment center where I learned about the 12 steps, and they had 12-step meetings that were brought in. And fortunately or unfortunately, I started to identify right away. My very first meeting, there was a young man, it was the first share after the speaker, and he was beating on the table and talking about the desperation of a drowning man, which I did not have. And so I thought, well, I'm not getting sober. I don't have that. I don't have the desperation of a drowning man to get sober. I don't even think I belong here. But the second woman that shared, she was to my left, and she was an older woman with short curly hair, and she spoke softly, and she was standing up against the wall like I was. And she started sharing out loud about how I had secretly felt inside my whole life. And I started to identify with this feeling that she was talking about of always being different, of this sort of anxiousness around people and people pleasing in situations, and always sort of feeling on edge and needing to relieve that feeling, wanting to be out of your skin, out of your body, not in what you were in. And so I started to identify in that meeting with what she was sharing, and my mind snapped shut because I said, oh no. Immediately, this was 3 or 4 days into treatment, and I'm in an AA meeting, and I start to identify. And I realized that I wasn't crazy. I had this thing. I had this malady, this spiritual malady, this dis-ease called addiction and alcoholism. And yes, they are the same thing. I thought that I was an addict, not alcoholic. So I did try some controlled drinking after treatment, which went very poorly. Within 30 days, I was sober for good. And I got sober in March of 2007. So I'm 16 years sober, and that makes me 40 years old. I had a friend yesterday ask me, she's a normie friend, we're in school together, and she said, oh, what are the 12 steps? And thankfully, I was able to recite them to her quickly because, I didn't want to bore her with all the minutia that I could go into on each step. But she just said, oh, wow, that's so amazing. Those are really cool. And I was like, yeah, they are cool. I said, they work for any addiction too. It's not just one kind. I was telling her one of the coolest meetings I ever went to was an all 12-step meeting where we had gamblers and food addicts and alcoholics and Al-Anons, and we were all in the same room, and we were all sharing about how the 12 steps had changed our lives. And I just want to make a caveat here that I do not represent I just want to make a caveat here that I do not represent AA, that I'm just merely a member of a 12-step fellowship, and that I don't, represent it as a whole. You will get many, many different people, many, many different personalities, many, many different thoughts and feelings, many, many, many different ways to run a meeting. And so I just need to make that clear. This is just one person's opinion on recovery. And there are so many. And if you don't like what I have to say, that there are plenty of other people out there and a lot of other opinions. And just, I always say, take what you want, leave the rest. So when I was talking to her about step 10, I was talking about how, we continue to take this inventory. And throughout the day, if we, say something rude, or we're offhanded, or we make some sort of negative statement to someone else during the day, that we immediately go back to them and say, hey, I was in a weird place. That's not about you. We run through the columns of inventory. We look at our part and we say, hey, I was in fear and I reacted out of that place. It doesn't have anything to do with you. What can I do to make it right? So you say those kinds of things on a daily basis. And oddly enough, successful, normal people know how to do this innately. I have learned that a lot of professionals who are very successful have already learned this art and skill, and whether they learned it from their families or they just figured it out along the way. It's amazing. But I had to be taught. I had to be taught how to live. And I did not have a great blueprint for that. And so when I got here, there's this line in one of the literature about step 10 that says, whenever we're upset, there's something wrong with us. Now, this line has become more and more profound over the years for me. And especially lately, I have been examining my negative thought patterns and really my negative obsessions. Lately, I have been, confronted with feelings of, why isn't this person calling me back? Why isn't this person texting me back? What does this mean? What does it mean about me? Feelings of inadequacy, feelings of less than, feelings of not good enough. All the security fears and security addictions, I'm not enough, you're not enough, there's not enough. There's just simply not enough of whatever it is, love, affection, attention. And something that has come into my life recently too is tantric yoga. And I'm a part of an online group, and I'm going to a retreat in Portugal in October. I went to one in Costa Rica in April. And it's not neo-tantra, it's just traditional. So, I always like to point out that Kama Sutra is only one of the Vedic sutras. So it has a lot more to do with the relationship with self, the inner self. And one thing that I really love about my yoga instructor as a trauma therapist is that she talks a lot about attachment theory. And it's so interesting, the convergence of all of these things. You have the 10th step saying, whenever you're upset, there's something wrong with you, which really means you need to look inside. What's going on here? And then assess that and pray about that. And whatever your higher power is, it doesn't have to be God. It can be the earth. It can be good, orderly direction. It could be a group of drunks, right? On the group level, like it could be the educational variety. It doesn't have to be some woo-woo thing. I like the woo-woo stuff. It makes me feel happy and fun and free. So I like it. And then you have the attachment theory about anxious attachment and where it comes from and why we form anxious attachments instead of secure attachments based on our caregivers and their ability to meet our needs. And for me as a kid, I never really had that safe space to really be who I was. I was never allowed to be wild and free. I was always being contained. I was always too much. And so this idea around being too much has persisted. And at this point in my life, it really is no longer serving me. I experimented last night. I was hanging out with a friend, and I normally would be pretty reserved around this person. But I decided to kind of test the waters a little bit and just be joyful, just be playful. I was in a playful mood. I was listening to Mariah Carey Fantasy and like dancing around in my room yesterday. And then I went to go hang out with this person, and I just kept that energy going because it's what I wanted and it's what I wanted to make me happy. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to see this person's reaction. And it was amazing. We had this great evening. It was so fun. And I was happy. I was happy being me. And I've learned more and more that the more I am myself and in its fullness, the right people come and the right people go. My third sponsor would often talk to me about when I would come to her with, feelings of envy or jealousy around people hanging out and not inviting me, or feelings of, inadequacy around that. And she would say, Lauren, I want you to take a minute to really think about this before you answer it. She said, do you want to hang out with people who don't want to hang out with you? So I took a deep breath and I thought about it and I searched my heart. Do I want to hang out or be around people who don't really want to hang out and be around me? And ultimately, in my heart of hearts, when I'm connected to myself, the answer is no. So really what I'm saying about all of this is that I have an inner relationship with a higher power that I have gained through the 12 steps and through yoga. And I have a fundamental wellness underneath all of it, underneath the chaos, the Shakti of life, all of the emotions. I do when I take the time to connect to my heart and to my inner core and inner being and my idea of higher power and God. I'm okay. Like even on my own, my yoga instructor says you're born alone and you die alone. And she means that in a way of like, if that's the truth, if the people I desire, the people I long for, if they leave, how will I manage to be okay? And when I hold myself in love through this connection to my higher self, right? Higher power, higher self. When I get into that kind of alchemy, yeah, I do not need, nor do I want those types of people in my life. And it's really easy to just set them free. And everyone is dealing with their own stuff, and everyone has their own attachment traumas, and everyone has their own stories and their own personalities. And we're all these little cogs, and we're trying to fit in where we fit in, get in where you fit in. Anyway, but yeah, I've been a little bit nomadic, and I've found that people come and they go, but it's okay. So this idea that whenever I'm upset, there's something wrong with me. God, it just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back. And the lesson lately has been how much time am I really giving to self-love? How much time and energy am I really giving to myself, for myself, because I believe that I'm worthy of that love, of the love that I would give to myself, like the love I would give to somebody else. Am I worthy of that love? And am I willing to give it to myself? And that means time. That means exercise. That means self-care. That means healthy eating. That means communicating with friends and people who love and care about me and making sure to maintain the relationships in my life, especially with my friends. I think there's so many subtle layers to be peeled back, and everything just continues to be revealed. But now I'm starting to understand that when I get into that discomfort, when I get into that anxiousness or the obsession with somebody else's behavior, and I'll get into those negative loop patterns, I like to like talk to myself about what I would say to this person and how I'm going to word, my boundaries with them. And boundaries are wonderful. And when done lovingly and correctly, work well for everyone. But sometimes just simply doing the best version of me and living exactly how I would want to live if I loved myself completely is the exact boundary and permission the other person needs to do the same. It really is attraction and not promotion. That has been an ongoing battle, but I'm learning and growing every day. I'm really enjoying this full moon and all of the energy that it's bringing into my life and all of the awareness. And I'm super grateful to the 12 steps, because I'd probably be not here. I'd be gone. I'd be elsewhere, on to the next life. I once had a friend who said it's an extreme gamble to be an alcoholic, right? Like karmically, the idea if you get to choose the life you're going to be born into, maybe your parents, maybe you do choose a few things and there's free will, right? But choosing to become an alcoholic is interesting, or be born into an alcoholic household. What an interesting choice karmically, right? But I'll say this, like every single event, every single trauma and tragedy has brought me to this very moment with you. And yeah, I wouldn't be who I am without any of it. And I'm going to keep working on it. I'm not perfect. I definitely get angry still, and I get into that place of fear where I can't sort of contain it, and then I do reach out for help and am able to be held by others in order to like come back to myself. And so, yeah, I'm going to keep exploring all of these areas, and I hope that you can join, and I hope it helps someone. Anyway, You never have to feel that way again, ever, if you don't want to. There's a solution for that. And you're in the right place. You're right where you need to be. And the pain is just the signal. Pain and suffering is actually your body and your soul's way of loving you. It is trying to show you all the areas in which you should move differently. Pain is the spiritual touchstone of growth. Anyway, thank you for coming. See you next time.